I can't believe so many of you came back. That's pretty awesome. I don't mean that in a negative way. But thank you so much. It's one thing to get in the way of coffee or lunch, but to get in the way of your weekend. So it's a privilege for me to be here. I love the tagline, getting serious about social media. And I think getting serious about social media is probably more important than ever in terms of the most important skill you need to have. Whether you're exiting university or running a small business or working in an enterprise like Salesforce with north of a $60 billion market cap. And that skill is your ability to learn. I'm going to talk a little bit about disruption. Typically when you talk about disruption, you talk about companies and businesses and industries. By the way, I have no slides, so I apologize for those of you who are looking forward to taking maybe pictures and tweeting them, but I have no slides. So World Economic Forum projects that 7 out of 10 kids in elementary school, 7 out of 10, will work for companies in jobs that don't exist yet. Think about that. How many social media managers or community managers or mobile app developers did you have 10, 15 years ago? The answer is 0. Not many chief digital evangelists either. So your ability to learn is key. An Oxford study recently published that 47% of work in the US is susceptible to automation in the world of artificial intelligence and augmented intelligence and automation. Forrester, a major analyst firm, believes that's around 10%. And this is in near term, in the next 10, 15 years. So your ability to recognize disruption is key, and it's not companies that disrupt, it's people that disrupt. So when we talk about technologies like social, and you had some amazing speakers today that talked about storytelling and SEO versus social and ability to optimize your voice and scale your brand and earn trust. I really don't have much to add there, but I want you to think about being uncomfortable, because I believe that's the only way you can achieve growth. I went to UMass as an electrical engineer, undergrad and grad. And so in my 20-some-odd years of professional career, most of the time I was locked up in the lab writing software and building technology. I was an electrical engineer, undergrad and grad. So the notion of being out here and speaking to you, I think it was Eleanor Roosevelt who said, do one thing every day that scares you. Well, this is it for me. So going back to disruption, really, I think it's mobile that drove social and vice versa. This was introduced a decade ago. The iPhone is unlocked about 80 times a day in the US, average adult. Conservatively, there's 600 million of these that are out there, so that's 48 billion engagement opportunities a day. That's 17 trillion a year. So 10 years ago, only 3% of the population in the US had a phone. Today, it's 81%. It's about 2 billion smartphones. But in the next 3 years, there'll be 6 billion people on Earth, about 75% of humanity, that'll have a supercomputer in their pocket. And most people don't recognize this as a supercomputer, but the computing power in this phone is 1 million times more than all the computers NASA used to land a man on the moon in 1969. Think about that. Yesterday at the Google Developer Conference, they talked about a new way of Googling things. Just point to an object, and it'll immediately tell you what the object is. So deep learning technologies, deep learning, machine learning, these are the artificial intelligence sciences that are driving the technology that can look at an image with 99% accuracy, tell you what it is. And that'll create a whole new business model, whole new disruption opportunities. Think about Siri. Think about Alexa at home with the Echo. A year ago, only 300 or so skills, about 15,000 skills now, including video and phone. And so you have this new UI, which is conversation. You talk to things and gain insights. That all stops at home. When you get to work, you don't get to talk to your CRM or your marketing automation tool or whatever it may be. But that will come, because lots of smart folks, including Salesforce with about 200 data scientists, are working on these new technologies. But that will mean disruption in business. And when we talk about social, I view social as building a personal learning network, so you can grow as an individual. I don't really think about social as a selling tool, even though I have personally closed close to 8-digit deals strictly through social. In fact, last year, it's almost a $10 million deal that was purely a social interaction between the chief digital officer and I that led to us closing business. So yes, you can close business and you can do it greatly, but if your intent, your motivation, your practice is aimed principally at selling in social, I believe you won't reach your full potential. Social is used to educate, inspire, and ignite positive action. So before you hit that tweet button, is someone going to learn something? Am I going to inspire someone? Is this positive? And I think it's important to be positive. People do business with people they like and respect. So be likable and trustworthy. Disruption. 8 out of 10 businesses, according to Bloomberg, fail in the first 18 months, or within 18 months. 8 out of 10 in the US. Since 2000, 50% of the Fortune 500 disappeared. Could be bankruptcy, mergers of acquisitions, number of reasons, but they're gone. The average age of the S&P 500 companies today is approaching 12 years. We're closer to 2030 than we are 2000. What does that mean? That means if the average age of S&P is 12 years, by 2000, the companies that are large by 2030 aren't born yet. So that's the disruption that's happening in business. But the reason why businesses get disrupted is because we get comfortable with doing things and we don't intentionally struggle. Social for me was intentionally struggling. In fact, you know, it's nice all the kind words you said about Twitter, and it makes it look like I'm some sort of a, you know, visionary or futurist. Somebody created a Twitter account for me. I didn't even do it. 5 years ago, I had 0 digital footprint. Today, I produce about 2 million impressions a day on Twitter. So a CIO created an account for me because he saw that I was internally social in my business, but I didn't really have the courage to share externally. I didn't think people would find my content interesting. A life lesson: if you're a ferocious reader, and I read a lot, and if you're interested, chances are, if you're generous enough to share, over time people will find you interesting. So that was, it was a mistake that I didn't join social networking earlier, but it really, I just didn't have the courage. And again, I am an introvert, so I just didn't have the courage. I started sharing on Twitter, and then amazing things happened, because maybe it was accidental, maybe it was on purpose, I'm not really sure. It was giving without expecting a get. I had no expectations other than, here's another channel for me to share content that I find interesting. And I love the advice about, you know, optimal time is on a Tuesday morning or a Saturday evening or whatever. The best time to share good content is when you can. And don't chase influence. Chase being helpful. I don't know how you can gain influence if you're not helpful. So when was the last time you shared content? Or when was the last time somebody walked up to you and just unsolicited said, hey, I learned something from you, thanks. If that hasn't happened at your work or in a university or wherever you are, you're not reaching your full potential. And social, I find, can be very hard. But it has changed my career completely. I started my career running engineering. I started my career running code. And then I became vice president of engineering at a local company here. It was about a $500 million company. Then I was asked to run services. The reason I was asked to run services is we decided that the quality of our products is going to be how we're going to differentiate. So the CEO asked me, as the guy running engineering, to talk about product quality and our practice to our customers. And I really oh, really? You want me to do that? Let me just go back in the lab and help with my team building stuff. But then I started telling stories about quality, and that's the first step in being social for me, was just sharing our engineering practices. He saw that customers were comfortable talking with me, so he asked me to run services. I got a little bit closer to the outside stakeholders of our business. So I started meeting with customers, and then I ended up running services for 10 years. Chief customer officer, and then I became an accidental marketeer because of Twitter. But when I say accidental marketeer and that changed my career, last year 500,000 people applied at Salesforce for jobs. I've been told it's harder to get into Salesforce than to get into Harvard University. And if I look at the percentage of new hires from last year, I think it's about 1% of those folks that applied. I applied on Twitter using direct message. And if it wasn't that 5-year journey of establishing a credible voice on a social platform, I'm not sure that would have been the case. Now, in 2013, when I was a chief marketing officer of a company, Boston-based company, I stopped using resumes to hire marketeers. I found that I would read their resume and it was their best description of them on 1 or 2 pages. And then I would go look at their profile on LinkedIn or Twitter or a comment they left on a blog and immediately see disconnect in terms of their cultural fit or sentiment. It's my personal belief in the next decade, resumes are going to be dead. In some industries, dead. In others, dying. But your personal brand is your digital footprint plus your digital exhaust. And that exhaust, those unintended consequences of pictures and posts and hashtag fails and perhaps not so kind comments you leave on other people's work, all of that is accessible to employers like my company, for example, within seconds. We can create a digital profile of a candidate literally in seconds. And most tech-savvy companies do that. So it's important for you to understand that disruption means that if you're not embracing and taking social media seriously, you're not building a digital brand, personal brand, it's harder for you to be employable in the future. And if you are creative, if you are likable, if you are an expert, one of the speakers today talked about having domain expertise, it's amazing how fast you can be at the top of that list. Working for a company like mine that was named by Forbes the most innovative company in the last decade, fastest growing software company in the world. So having a digital footprint is critically important. And when you hear technologies like artificial intelligence and automation, it is that differentiation through ability to influence, ability to build trust, ability to communicate clearly, articulate a vision. Those are the skill sets that companies are looking for. Those are the skill sets where, regardless of industry, it's going to be skill set that's critically important as we move forward. Especially knowing that if you fast forward 10, 15 years from now, there will be jobs that don't exist today. So you're going to have the ability to learn in real time. What social did for me is to help me learn about modern science of marketing. When I was asked to be a CMO of a $700 million public company with no marketing experience, it was because being active on social led to writing content. A publisher literally forced me to write a book. I said no about 15 times. And then he said, no, Boston Globe just named you guys the 4th best company to work. You can't capture why you got there in a tweet. You need to write a book. So I ended up writing a book about it, led to blogs. Now I write weekly for the Huffington Post. I don't like to write. And yet I've written 300 some odd articles in Huffington Post. I've written a book. And this weekend I'll spend probably my Saturday writing a blog about the CEOs that I met yesterday in London. Incredible, fascinating discussion that I need to capture and share with my community. So when I think about social, I think of the letter S, sincerity, be sincere in terms of the content you share. When I think of O as being open-minded, adopt a beginner's mindset. Adopt a beginner's mindset. I never forget a staff meeting where I gave a PowerPoint presentation. Gus, an intern, walked up to me at the end of the presentation and said, Vala, could you put this presentation on SlideShare? And I'm supposed to be some, a social media, this, that, and I didn't even know what it was. I'm like, Gus, what's SlideShare? And he tells me what it is. I'm like, oh, it's free. I can sign up. I can post PowerPoints and people download them and append them to their websites. My first SlideShare got 600,000 views. And so I could have very easily, at the time I'm the CMO and an intern walks up, I could just ignore him. Fortunately, luckily, I had a beginner's mindset. I'm open-minded, free of prejudice. I'm like, okay, Gus, tell me what this is and let's do it. And it had profound impact in terms of expanding my voice in the industry. So O is being open. C, collaborative. The smartest person in this room is the room. And I found that every single person I meet knows more about something than I do. So the smartest people I know seek random collisions. Purposefully, not just during a lunch break or whatever, when you collect a business card. Follow through and try to see if you can learn something from someone. I have 5 more letters. No. The I is be interested. I already shared that with you. Being interested is more important than being interesting. And that means it's more than Malcolm Gladwell's 10,000-hour rule for listening. You really have to practice the art of listening your entire life. I'm terrible at listening, even though I passionately work on that skill every day. I have to force myself to not look for interruptions so I can jump in. I have to maintain eye contact. There's all these things I got to do to make sure I'm actively listening. Anyway, so being interested is a hard skill to develop. The A, which one of our speakers said she's tired of hearing about, it's overused, but authentic. Authenticity to me is what you believe, what you say, and what you do intersects. If at any point they're orthogonal to each other, orthogonal is engineering terms, if they don't intersect, then you're probably not being as sincere as you could be. And the last letter for social is likable. Be likable. I know it's easy to, we all have opinions, we're all smart, but over time I found with social, it's better to be kind than clever. I found people responding to certain things I post on certain technologies where I have a patent on the technology. And some consider me as maybe the foremost authority on this topic, and yet I don't feel like it's necessary to go back and forth. Don't feed the trolls. Just believe the words that you say. It's okay to have, we've talked about this before, I learn more from people that disagree with me than the ones who do. And that's why the interested part is important. So you want to seek diversity of point of view, because it just not only strengthens and shapes your thinking, but there are times where I realize I'm dead wrong. I was wrong. And I'm so thankful that I'm now on a new path. So it's velocity of learning. It's not just the speed, but the direction. Again, I'm sorry about the engineering. It's speed and direction. When you're on the right path, then go as fast as you can, and that's how you stay relevant. So again, I'm sorry I didn't bring any slides. I do think that social shaped my career. I'm the first evangelist at Salesforce. It's a dream job. I could have never got there if it wasn't through networking. And it doesn't matter the platform. I tweeted a little bit earlier that said, an artist, it's not the canvas or the quality of paint or the brush that makes a great artist. It's you, it's the artist. It's your appetite for learning, it's your appetite for generosity, it's your humility. It's all of that I think will help you achieve full potential. And if you don't love social, it's not, again, as an introvert, it's hard for me to engage and be a center of, or do what I'm doing right now. But I do think it's important because, I feel like establishing a trusted voice not only benefits me, but it benefits my group and also my company. So hopefully that's helpful. I'm open to any Q&A at this time, and thank you for coming back late on a Friday afternoon. Thank you.
Any questions? We have pretty likely. Yep.
I'll just project. Do you got any book recommendations?
Mine. No. One of my favorite books is Professor Clay Christensen, who teaches a few miles down the street here at Harvard Business School, How to Measure Your Life. I can give you a ton of marketing, digital marketing, and social and all that, but
only the interesting stuff.
There's not a better time in the world to be than in marketing. And if you don't realize that, then we should talk. Because I think CMOs and marketeers, a good story can change the world, and it can certainly change your business and yourself. So, and it's not storytelling, it's about narrative. Stories have a beginning, middle, and an end, and it's about someone else. Narratives is open-ended and inclusive. So you want to become masterful at narratives, not storytelling. But that's a different discussion. How to Measure Your Life, Clay Christensen, awesome book. It'll make you reflect about what matters most.
Thank you.
Any other
questions?
Have a great weekend.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.